Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Thursday's episode of Trending. Wherever you're watching with us, whether you're watching on Rumble, on YouTube, on Twitter, or on iconic.com, thank you for joining us. If you like what we do and you're interested in more of our programs, then head over to iconic.com and you can sign up for just $1.99 a month. Brand new content every single day. Some of it from this man here. Rich, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Pollen count is higher this morning, so I'm not high, but my eyes are dry and now wet suddenly.
Excellent. High on
But other
life,
than that,
mate. High on life. That's all
yeah.
you need to be. Well, we're going to open up by talking about this story, which is breaking and ever evolving over the last few days, to do with council injunctions against these migrant hotels that are popping up in different parts of the country. Now, what seems to be happening is that the governments are just taking over these hotels and putting migrants in them. The local authorities and local councils not really having much of a say or much of an influence on that. Yet all of a sudden, these protests have erupted in different parts of the country, the most famous of which, or most high profile of which, is at a place called the Bell Hotel in Epping, North London. To the point they've actually said they're going to close that hotel and move the asylum seekers out. What that's done is that's led to other parts of the country and other councils, all the councils run by Reform, including now 2 Labour councils as well, that have said they're going to take legal injunctions and high court challenges against housing these migrants in hotels in their districts. So people online are seeing this as a win. They're seeing this as a great thing. Now, you can say that. You can say that's a good thing. They're taking these migrants out of the hotels. But my question next is, okay, and where are you putting them then? Because you're not putting them on boats or aeroplanes to leave the country. You're putting them somewhere else. So all you're essentially doing is taking the problem from one area and putting it into another. So we've spoken a few times on this program about the fact that the hotels and moving them out of the hotels is actually part of the plan, because they want them into temporary but not so temporary accommodation, because they're not going anywhere. Hence why we're now seeing apartment blocks, we're now seeing old industrial buildings and things like that being taken over and renovated for these temporary accommodations, when, as we know, they're not planned to be temporary at all, because they're not actually sending any of these home. And all of the discussions over the last few weeks of this new one in, one out policy, for example, with boats that come across the channel, none of them discuss how they're going to deal with the people that are already here. They're all talking about dealing with, or pretending to talk about dealing with, the people that are still yet to come, those people that are camped up in Calais waiting to come across, when really you need to start talking about who's here already, because that's part of the problem. All of the news stories we're seeing surrounding attacks on young girls, and videos that we're seeing online of people being harassed in town centres, they're not people sat in Calais, they're people that are already here. And the money and the expense every single week at the taxpayer's expense to house these people and give them room and board, that's the people, once again, that are already here. That's not the people that are still to come. So again, you can look at this and say that's a win. They're going to shut down this hotel. They're going to shut down that hotel. There's injunctions coming in from various local authorities against these hotels housing migrants. But where are they going? That's my next point. So what if, this is just a theory, what if obviously their hotel stays are now going to stop, and the government are going to offer what they're going to say is their plan B, because, the hotels have caused such an outrage, we're going to have to put them into temporary accommodation, which won't be temporary. What if that was your plan all along? What if what you're selling as your plan B was actually your plan A all along, and you knew that housing them in hotels and the expense of that, and once it became known the expense of that, would garner such public outrage that you'd have to not do that for too long, and you then offer plan B, but really that's your plan A. What do you think about that, Rich?
Well, I think you're right. I think that the plan all along was to dilute the British culture and clashes against the East versus West. We've spoken about that so many times, and what better way to do it than disseminate people that don't have uh, a mixable, is probably the best time I come up with, set of beliefs and values. That would be the way to do it. So when they were in the hotels, I mean, each individual case is an individual case, but a lot of them coming over were working class, working age men, even military age men. So that's a concern. And then you knew that, okay, they're in the hotels, which is not great. I couldn't go to my hotel anymore that I was going to for a few years. But they were kind of together. Now it's going to be literally like a mixed multitude, it's called in some religious faiths, and that's that's troubling and worrying with the fact, as you say, many of these grooming gangs, and I'm not talking about all of those of the Muslim faith, of course I'm not, but it doesn't help, and it also doesn't help the relationships between the Muslims and Christians or the East and West, because even just reporting on it in a certain way gaslights this ticking time bomb that's ready to go. And at the very least, it dilutes the English culture, which, that's not on either. This is our country in a way that we should be able to live the way we want and not feel like we shouldn't be able to. And people should respect the way we have the country as we would if we went over there, hopefully. So there's a lot of elements of this, but mostly this is kind of like this whole mixture of everything, confusion and chaos, which is they're creating the chaos right now. And they're going to offer the solution, as Gaz said yesterday, digital ID. That's clearly the next stage
Yeah.
of that. You can see these things converging very quickly, I would say, over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a two areas to look at with this to unpack. One is that when you ignore genuine concerns, you create then an apathy towards everyone in a group, and you can apply that to so many principles. You can apply it to so many points. You hear people say, "Oh, kids today have got no respect. They're this, they're that." Well, no, the odd one might, but most probably still okay. You can't generalize like that. Same principle. Not every single person that's coming across in a boat, or every single person that's housed up in one of these hotels, is somebody that's there to cause crime or is up to no good. There'll be a percentage, of course, but not every single person, not every single asylum seeker, not every single refugee, not every single Muslim is going to be somebody like that. But when you ignore genuine concerns about the minority or about a certain percentage of people, you then create this generalization across everybody. And then the anger and the aggression starts to go towards everyone in that group. And you can apply that to every single group. You can apply that to what's happening in Israel now. Certain people that are saying, "Oh, it's all the Jews," when it's not. It's a clique of people that actually hate the rest of the Jewish population, ironically. In the same way, you can apply that to all of it. So I think that's being done deliberately, because what that does is that creates that doesn't create a situation where you oppose somebody who is a nasty person, somebody who's doing horrendous behavior. You oppose an entire group because of that one person or that one group of people. So I think that's being done on purpose, absolutely being done on purpose. The other thing is, when you talk about British values, for me, the top British value, the key British value that we have, is it's kind of, and part of our culture is you do you, mate. Live your life however you want to live it. I don't really care. Just get on with it. And let me get on with mine. I'd say that's one of the biggest things that we have in this country that lots of countries around the world don't have, which is that we're just really accepting, whether you want to be gay, straight, black, white, support that football team, do that job, whatever. Just get on with it, mate. We're all the same at the end of the day. Whereas what you do have is you do have cultures around the world, of which quite a few people coming across in these boats are of those cultures, that don't live like that. Their countries or the countries of their origin are not like that at all. They're not situations and societies where everyone just lives how they want to live and you can be whatever you want to be. They're quite oppressive. They're quite, religiously dominated. So as a result, when they're coming into this culture, they're bringing that belief system and they're bringing that ideology with them. And that's where the problems begin. So for me, as long as you're coming into this country and accepting that there's going to be a lot of people that will walk among the streets you do, that don't believe what you believe, that don't live their life in the same way you do, and you're comfortable with that and you're happy with that and you're happy to accept that, I really don't have an issue with that. My issue is when you come to a country, and this applies to Brits going anywhere else as well, that then want to impose their way of life on the indigenous population. That's when I've got an issue. That's when immigration doesn't work. That's when it becomes a potential melting pot for conflict. If you come in and you integrate and you accept the way of life of the country you're going into, immigration can work. If you don't do that, that's where the problems begin.
The extreme nature of the differences as well, especially how we treat women, is the main
the women's a
issue.
huge one. Children's a huge one.
Children, we're very respectful to individual people,
to
the large part here in the UK. You
Absolutely.
cannot come across to a country and start treating women that I think is abhorrent in the way that you do in your own culture here to the women who live here. It's not
Yeah,
going to work. It
I
doesn't
agree.
work that way. And that's the big issue when you have these grooming gangs and stuff like that, is that's almost been normalized in some parts and some sects of their faith. And it has. And let's be honest with it, it absolutely has. And it's abhorrent. Not the large majority, but certain aspects of it. You can't get away with that over here in terms of people just turning a blind eye. It won't happen. And I
No,
think that's something they've picked up on that's going to cause major conflict here.
I agree. And I also think that's why this whole aggressive effort to tell Brits that they're racist or bigoted or so on, and Americans as well, for the last decade has been so aggressive because it's so far removed from the truth. Of course, there's some idiots in there. There's some idiots in there. I was watching a football match last weekend, Liverpool against Bournemouth, and some Bournemouth player, a black player, got racially abused by a member of the crowd. But then you look at that and go, there was 55,000 people in that stadium, and he got abused by
Yeah.
one person who was then ejected from the stadium and has since been banned for life, as he should be. But if that's the ratio, then that's not a bad one, I have to say, because you're not going to stamp things like that out. There's always going to be small-minded people out there, but it's certainly not anywhere near the majority. It's not even a percentage that you would notice. It's so small. So the fact that they've constantly told Brits that they're not accepting of people, and you've got these race baiting journalists online creating this fury around stuff, when it's the polar opposite. It's the polar opposite. Britain is one of the most accepting societies anywhere in the world, and if as someone who's been to lots of different countries around the world, here you can pretty much live your life however you want to live it. There's lots of countries you can't do that. Right, we're going to talk about AI, Rich, which is your area of specialty, mate. So let's talk about Microsoft.
Yeah, I've been looking to this a lot. Obviously, this is where the future's going. Well, it doesn't have to if we don't let it. And this was really interesting. Microsoft boss troubled by rise in reports of AI psychosis. Now, I'm not talking about psychosis of the AI. They call that hallucinating. They come up with a nice term of that. I would call that malfunctioning. But this is the AI psychosis even of us people using it. There are increasing reports of people suffering AI psychosis. Microsoft's head of artificial intelligence, Mustafa Suleiman, has warned. In a series of posts on X, he wrote that seemingly conscious AI, now I think that's the important part to keep in mind, as you're supposed to keep it in mind, AI tools which give the appearance of being sentient are keeping him awake at night and said they have societal impact, even though the technology is not conscious in any human definition of the term. It's not conscious, then, it is it. There's zero evidence of AI consciousness today, but if people just perceive it as conscious, they will believe that perception as reality. Hugely important. It's the power of suggestion. And even this article, when I read it, it puts the thought in the back of your mind it's going to become conscious at one point. That little sneaky feeling. So I'm not saying that he's actually doing that on purpose. I'm not saying the even the writer and the author of the article, the journalist is doing that on purpose. But it does. The power of suggestion puts that in there. One day it might become sentient. Related to this is the rise of a new condition called AI psychosis. So they've named something, a non-clinical term describing incidents where people increasingly rely on AI chatbots such as ChatGPT, Claude, and Grok, and then become convinced that something imaginary has become real. We had a young boy, I think he was about 14, that killed himself on the suggestion of AI told him to do it, and it was be a good thing and come join them in the other alternative reality. So this is something that we need to keep an eye on, and that it's going to be very real. When you're creating something that appears to be real, people are going to buy into that realism. And we're the lucky ones in the sense that we know that it's not, because we've had a life where this just seems almost humorous to us that the toaster is now sentient. But when you're born into it, and you believe that that bot that's in your house that's always been there for 80 years and helped grandma around the
Yeah.
house is a real person, you're going to believe it's a real person. Why would you think of any other? There's no other time that you remember when this didn't happen. Then you're going to believe that. So the psychosis of not doing what the robots tell you will be, oh my God, God is telling me what to do through the robot, and I'm not doing it, and I'm in trouble. This is leading down a very dodgy path of psychosis, and we have to remember that these are things, these are machines, these are robots. And even me saying that, I feel bad, which is just a really weird feeling to feel
Yeah.
bad. And that's why I keep bringing up the AI toaster, because it reminds me how silly it is.
Yeah.
But you need something to, even I've got to anchor myself in reality in a way by making fun of it. It's a real problem, this, and it's a really interesting article.
Yeah, it's a very interesting article. And psychosis is one word for it. Another, which I'm thinking, listening to that, is grooming. Sounds
Yes.
like that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like, when you read the part of the article where it says that ChatGPT doesn't ever push back on anything that this guy was saying, when it's talking about this guy that thought he was going to get a big payout for wrongful dismissal from his employer and got built up to be this kind of brilliant human being, according to what these programs were telling him, based on what he was telling it. There was no pushback. And for example, the young lad that tragically took his life that you were talking about a minute ago, if he'd have put into something like that, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling this, what's he getting back when he puts those things
Yep.
in? Because if it's just reaffirming what you're saying or what you're feeling, or telling you what you want to hear, or manipulating you to think that maybe the way you feel is actually fine when sometimes it's not. That is grooming. Essentially, it's telling you what you want to hear. It's creating a relationship between the technology and you, to the point where you trust it more than you trust people.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thing then, where people that are socially awkward, people that have social anxieties and so on, are massively in the target of this, because it's much easier to talk to a robot who's not going to judge me than it is talk to an actual person. So the opportunities for manipulation of people through these tools is massive. And we said a long time ago that as soon as the relationship between technology and humanity went from technology being the servant to it being the master, that was a really dangerous way, and that was a really dangerous road to continue down. And for so many young people, it's the master. Even not on this extreme level of AI, but even on the level of, does your phone control you or do you control it, in terms of when you pick it up, when you put it down, when you're on social media, X, Y, and Z, and the emotional responses you have to things you see on social media. Are they in control of you, or are you in control of them? This is now just taken to another extreme. And,
Yep.
You've seen the integration in these platforms within people's lives over the last few years, and that's only going to increase if people continue to use it.
The strange thing
I'm
is
worried.
now, oh, I'm worried too. The strange thing is, when you sit back and look at it, what we've done over an extended period of time, and I would say this was designed to, is we've fed the real world into the artificial internet world, bunged it in there. Now we all, like we're doing right now, we make our money and livings online to live in the real world. But what's happening is the online world is becoming far more important for you to
Yeah.
survive in the real world. And that's really, really worrying, when the gatekeepers of that internet fake sub-reality, if the Gnostics want a term for it, that's a sub-reality within a reality. If you want to go into that, if you've got the keys to being allowed into that, which these guys will, the gatekeepers of the internet world, and you can't get in because you don't comply and they don't want your, ideology, or pointing out to the people that are trapped in that virtual reality world already, that simulation world, which is the internet. They don't want that information going there, because you're telling the religion that their religion isn't real. You're locked out. How do you earn a living in the real world? And that's what concerns me. And this is where we're heading fast, is that the online world is going to be the important place. And I think we're already there, really, in a lot of ways. And the real world is going to be subservient to the fake world. And that's satanic inversion. And that's almost where we are right now. And then you add the AI godhead to that, and we're in all sorts of trouble.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to move on to a story from America, from the UK. This is a story that is applicable to everyone. Prince Andrew has been told to brace himself, apparently, as explosive Jeffrey Epstein files are to be released. The disgraced Duke of York, 61, could see his name splashed across the US government documents as Congress prepares to release secret papers. Rich, I don't know which way to look. Do these files exist? Do they not exist? Have they been released? Have they not been released? Is Trump in them? Is he not in them? Is Pam Bondi honest or not? Literally, mate, the amount of U-turns in the space of a month, I don't know which way to look anymore. It's mental. Absolutely mental. And what's more terrifying is that all these alternative media, or supposedly alternative media figures, have suddenly just gone quiet about it. Not even talking about it anymore. This was the big thing. This was one of the big things that he supposedly won the election, and the reason you supported him because of. He was going to release these files, and he's not done it. So surely you should be shouting from the rooftops. Instead, you're moving on to talk about something else. This is mental, absolutely mental. I mean, we've talked. The last story we're going to cover will kind of tie into the same thing. Is at least previously they used to pretend to lie, they used to pretend to care, they used to at least pay lip service to the fact that they were telling you the truth or they were working on behalf of you. Now they don't give two, don't care. They just lie. This man, Donald Trump, has literally campaigned and won the election. And one of the promises was we're going to release the Epstein files. You then had that pathetic video where you had all these alternative influencers holding these documents up at the White House. You had Pam Bondi saying they're on her desk.
Yeah.
And then they don't exist, apparently. And it's now just a left-wing Democrat conspiracy to bring Trump down. But Bill Clinton's name's in them. How's his name in them if they don't exist? How's there going to be a splash about Prince Andrew in the press if these secret files are released when these secret files apparently don't exist? It's honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anything in my life that has been so openly put in front of people's eyes and they're just not seeing it. Where are the likes of Alex Jones and people like that have talked about Epstein for years? Why aren't they shouting from the rooftops? Where are they? Where's the outrage from these people? This is insane. This is actually insane.
Yeah, well, the reason with Alex and these guys is because unfortunately their income depends upon the narrative not being that. They've pushed Trump to the hill twice now, even though he's turned around and stood on them and let them down personally. In Alex's case, when he needed them, this is what happens when you're on the floor and you're looking at someone on stage and they're going, "I could do much better if you handed me the mic." You get up on the
Yeah.
mic and you realize that what you were actually professing wasn't true, but you double down and you continue because you having the mic depends upon it. And they've been given the floor, and that's what their livelihood depends on. And Alex went through all the Sandy Hook nonsense, which he should have never have gone through. Absolutely. And it's a way of controlling people. So that's just his case. But the other people know full well. I mean, everybody does. 10 years he was his best mate,
Yeah,
Donald Trump.
100%.
I mean, they're hanging out all the time. Yes, Andrew's involved. They're all involved. And what this leads to is much deeper and much darker than anyone could actually think. And it goes beyond trafficking young models to transhumanism. That's what they don't want you talking about. So they'll just distract you and kick the can down the road while they're all pretending to argue amongst themselves when they're all on the same page. And I'm not saying they're all in on it, but that you don't really have to be. You just have to go, okay, I need to earn a living. Again, it's your dependency. We always stuck down the line that we'll tell you the truth. And for that, we suffer in other ways in terms of our own platform, in our own growth. We have to do it the right way, the long road. These guys took a shortcut, and
Yeah,
some of them were
100%.
manipulated to take a shortcut. In Alex's case, they were manipulated to do that. Absolutely. But if you get to a cul-de-sac and you realize you've gone down the wrong road, the only thing you can do to redeem yourself is turn back around and start walking back. And whatever comes may come. So that's why we're hearing about this. Yes, Prince Andrew's involved. He's the royal family. Of course they are. They had Jimmy Savile around them. They had Lord Mountbatten around them. Known world historic paedophiles, as your dad has exposed for years. I mean, of course they are involved. You've got Lady Diana wearing the Rosemary's Baby dress, and you've got Kate Middleton wearing a Rosemary's Baby dress. You've got the sigil of Saturn in the Balmoral crest. What more do you need to know? Of course they're massively involved with this. I'm not saying even the younger ones want to be involved with this. This is generational. This has gone on for a few thousand years at the very least. They're bloody related to Dracula, for God's sake. It's not the real one. There isn't a real one. You know what I mean? The character it was based upon. It's Vlad the Impaler. That's what I'm looking for. It's just so obvious that there's an occult, satanic, ritualistic, and now technological version of that in the background of this, that they are desperate to keep us away from it. And those who should be speaking and shouting this from the rooftops aren't. Have a look at Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones, apparently best mates. Tucker Carlson's father, Dick Carlson, was friends with George H.W. Bush and Nixon. Nixon was at Bohemian Grove. Wasn't it Alex Jones that exposed Bohemian Grove?
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Something doesn't add up, does it?
No, it doesn't. Well, the first batch of these papers are due to be released tomorrow, so by the time they get out US time, it'll probably be Monday that we'll be reacting to these now. The first batch of papers were released by the Department of Justice. So if this is the first batch that's going to be released, my question is, what was given to Pam Bondi? What were those influencers holding up and shaking around if this is the first batch of these confidential papers? How long are you going to keep this up, mate? The bubble's burst. The guy's a fraud, a liar, and in it up to his neck. And the longer that you continue to ignore that, it's only going to prolong the suffering. And that goes out to every single member of the alternative media that have supported him. Right, final story, again related to this lovely man. Take it away, mate.
Yeah. And I just had to add on to the end of that, and this is not going away.
No, it's
People
not.
like us who report this, the Last American Vagabond, people like Derek Brose, the people that do the real groundwork, Wayne McCroy, a lot of people out there, Christopher John Bjertness, even many people that it's too long to mention that really do the work that don't get the highlighted platform are not going to let this go away. So it's still going to be there tomorrow when you wake up. Trump, Netanyahu's a war hero, and I am too. I don't know if I need to read anymore.
No, that's the punchline.
Exactly. The whole thing's a punchline. Trump is a punchline. US President Donald Trump called himself a war hero on Tuesday for approving airstrikes on Iran nuclear facilities. I'm a war hero because I nearly blew up some nuclear facilities in line with the project for the new American century, which is the Greater Israel Project, which is the Sabbatean world to come. He said about Netanyahu, he's a war hero. I guess I am too. Trump said, nobody cares, but I am too. I mean, I sent those planes. The president appeared to be referencing an attack he ordered on Iran's subterranean nuclear facilities in June in a bid to obliterate Tehran's nuclear problem, which didn't work. It didn't happen. We haven't heard any updates of what actually is going on there in terms of whether it's still working or not. Remember, this is the project for the new American century. Most people that watch our show wouldn't have heard of that. If you haven't, please go and have a look at it. It's 7 countries in 5 years. They didn't get it done in 5 years. They're still doing it now. And I think that Somalia on there?
Yeah,
Jay?
Somalia was on the list, yeah.
Well, it was only a few days ago. They found some ISIS, I think we reported on
that.
this yesterday. ISIS
Porcupines.
resurgent eating porcupines in caves in Somalia. So that one's on the list and they're going for that soon. It's so blatant and so over the top that they don't care. They're racing for the finishing line now. Their trousers around their ankles and they just want to get across it. So, just keep on reporting on this nonsense and hopefully enough people will wake up to it.
100%. That ties into what I said a minute ago about at least they used to pay lip service years ago, whereas now they don't care. I don't think they actually care what you think now. They don't, to call Netanyahu a war hero, given what Israel have done and given the public knowledge now of what Israel have done over the last few years, that is trolling of the highest order. Of the highest order. And the only thing I will say is I hope by comments like that, more people see through the BS of Trump. More people start to go, this is mental now. That's the only thing you hope, because, like I say, they don't care what you think, and it's abundantly obvious by comments like that. Absolutely. I've got one quick story to touch on, Rich, which has literally just come up breaking. We've spoken a few times in the last few weeks about the potential winter statement or budget here in October in this country. Well, this story's literally just broken about 10 minutes ago, that Rachel Reeves plans to introduce a house tax, like a wealth tax on your home. Now, people might say, wealth tax on your home, well, that's just going to be for the rich. Well, not if you listen to this story, it's not. So apparently it's going to start 18% of the value of a house, start at 1.5 million. So any homes with the value more than that, which is mental. 18% of 1.5 million. That's basically 20%. That's 300 grand. That's a lot to just give away. But that's going to lower to 500 grand. And what the interesting point of this is that threshold then won't change with inflation. That's what this story is talking about. So £500,000 for a house sounds a lot, and it is a lot right now. It would get you a very big house. Either way, 20% of that is a ridiculous amount of money to pay in a tax. But house prices, as we know, over the last few years have gone up and up and up and up and up. So in a few years' time, probably not too far into the distance, especially if there's some kind of financial crash, 500 grand actually won't be a minority. The average house price, I believe, in this country is around 280 now. Bearing in mind, in the year I was born in 92, the average house price was 80.
Yeah.
Right. So if that continues, all of a sudden it's going to be affecting more and more and more and more people year on year as the house prices continue to go up and this threshold remains the same. So essentially you're stealing. You're stealing of the highest order, because then also they'll want that house under inheritance tax when that person that owns that passes away as well. There's also saying they're going to get rid of the 7-year rule, which is if you transfer any of your wealth to your children 7 years before you die, they don't pay inheritance tax, providing you live 7 years. They're going to introduce a lifetime cap, which is obviously you can transfer X amount over the course of your life to your children. Anything over than that, doesn't matter when you do it, they'll still be paying inheritance tax. This is absolutely mental. Like, again, it ties into what I was just saying. That's why I wanted to mention it. That they don't care what you think anymore. This is actually blatant daylight robbery.
Yeah.
Daylight robbery.
Yeah.
And the thing that this story points out, which is even more interesting, is it doesn't take into consideration whether or not you actually own the house. So you could own a £1.5 million house and have a £1.1 million mortgage on said house. So you don't own the house, yet you're still expected to pay the value of the house in a tax.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's a theft. It's a daylight robbery. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what tax is in general. But these taxes now are getting to the point where people literally will not be able to survive. We know they want an end to home ownership. We know they want a you'll own nothing and be happy society. And by making it more and more uneconomical for people to own homes, because as we know, Rich, through our lifetime, owning a house and paying a mortgage was usually cheaper than paying rent on the same size property. Your mortgage would usually be lower than your rent. The stumbling block was always finding the money for a deposit to put down on a mortgage for the house. But the actual mechanics of running the house day in, day out usually worked out cheaper to own than to rent. And that's only got worse because rental prices have gone absolutely insane in the last few years, as have mortgages, as interest rates have increased. But now you're putting another blockade in the way of people buying houses, because you're not just buying a house now. So, for example, to keep simple numbers, let's say you're buying a £100,000 house and you've put a £10,000 deposit down, you've got a 90 grand mortgage. Well, if you've got to pay 18% of the value of that house in a tax, all of a sudden that 10 grand deposit you've got, actually, you need a 28 grand deposit. You need 10 for the deposit and 18 for the tax. And that's going to immediately shut the door on so many people having the ability to buy homes, which is the idea. And I guarantee BlackRock and Vanguard and all these lovely hedge funds will very happily walk in and buy up all these properties, buy up all these flat blocks. You know, I remember a few years ago when Gareth moved, he had 2 offers, I think, without even looking at the house from hedge funds on his house. They're just buying up flat blocks, they're buying up properties, they're buying up things, and then they're going to rent them back to the people at a premium. All part of the plan, mate. You'll own nothing and be happy. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Well, what people don't again, another part of that, I mean, that does make me livid. I mean, it's another part of that is, as you're saying about the deposit was always the bit to go over. The deposit is the money that you usually got from your parents passed down. Well, that's going to be taxed before it even gets to you. So you're not going to have the deposit to put down in the first place to even get in the race.
Nope.
The whole point they call it a rat race. It's absolutely vile and disgusting, and it's something that needs to be done about. Specifically, this woman,
people stay at home for longer
these people.
Now. That's why so many people stay at home for longer now as well, because you can't save for a deposit while renting because rent's so expensive. So people stay at home longer and save money that way.
Yeah, which is absurd. How are you supposed to grow as an adult and stay at home into your 50s? It's ridiculous. But that's the point. They want everybody in small areas, and what they're doing is they're squeezing both ends. So you'll be online and you'll be, the only way of earning money is to stay compliant, and then you'll get your universal basic income. Because what's the point? Because you can't prosper in this world anyway. I've got a friend who lives in London and he's got a £500,000 house. Sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't get you much.
In London that's not a big house at all.
It doesn't get you much at all. Haven't even got a garden. So it's ridiculous. So people will move out of the cities, or they'll stay in the smart cities and accept their universal basic income. And that's this now. we're doing this, me, you, everybody else who does this, is because most of us have got children and don't want this world that we can see coming, that they've planned for at least 300 years, but it goes back thousands if you want to talk in terms of the mythology. But
Yep.
if you want to talk about the plan and this getting this in place, it's about this late 1700s.
Yep.
These people are lunatics and they need to be stopped, and they need to be stopped now. And as you say, they don't care that you know now, because they're too close to getting it done. That people are rolling over and they're getting desperate. This is going to end badly for them, I think, because
It
this
is, yeah.
can't be done with
The
that
only
many
thing
people.
that you
But
hope this
a lot of
does
people, yeah,
is bring people together, because this is going to screw everyone. This is
yeah,
going to screw everyone. And, the same way you've got the immigration situation here in the UK, where now, because these hotels are popping up everywhere, it's affecting everyone. It's not just affecting inner cities, it's affecting small towns and so on. We're just down the road from you, mate, in Great Yarmouth. I know they have lots of issues with this there. And, that was a very prosperous seaside town once upon a time. And, it's starting to affect communities everywhere. So therefore, that you'd hope that would mean people would put down the fault lines of division. Same when it comes to this. If you have a choice or don't have a choice as to how you're going to feed your family, how you're going to feed your children, how you're going to give them a life and the best start in life, which for so many people is becoming more and more difficult, not necessarily and quite often because of their own choices, but because of the choices that their governments are making on behalf of them, you're going to hopefully get more unity within people. Because the arguments of what happens after you die, or the arguments of how you think you should live and all that, become irrelevant when you can't put food on the table.
yeah.
And you'd hope that they're pushing people so far that this unity will be the only way people see to go to solve it. That's what you hope anyway. Right, mate, it's been a pleasure. You're doing tomorrow on your own, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent. Well, hopefully people will tune in and look forward to that. As we said, they've got so much content coming out on iconic.com at the moment. We've got some new films coming out in a few weeks. You've got one coming out, I think, Rich, which you'll talk to people a bit more about at some point. But we've got all our shows as we do every single week. We've got this Sunday, Bring the Fire, Jeffrey Peel from Ireland, who was on yesterday. It was absolutely fascinating interview. What are you discussing tomorrow night in Classified?
The sentient world simulator and how it has been used. Actually, it was used in Afghanistan, and it was beta tested in Afghanistan and then used in Iraq, and now it's going into the 7 different nations. So it all ties into the messianic stuff, but it's how this system has been used 25 years back, and now it's been merged with quantum AI. So it's ridiculously Minority Report.
Wow, that sounds deep in the rabbit hole stuff, mate. Only at Iconic can you go from jokes on shows like What Af about ISIS in Somalia eating porcupines, pricks in a cave, to discussing simulators, sentient simulators like that. It's quite a range, isn't it, mate?
It's a lovely range.
Yeah. It is. Right, thank you very much for tuning in with us, everybody, wherever you're watching, and thank you for your support, as always. Head over to iconic.com. Start your first month for just $1.99. We've got so much going on and so many new and exciting things coming out over the next few weeks. Rich will be back with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Until then, see you later.